Something big for the 20th anniversary? What?
Yes. So we have to do something. This is 20 years. This is huge.
And honestly,
we have spent 20 years changing this community. And everyone in this community is so grateful that we are here and that we are serving the Lord because we have bettered their lives. Even if they do not come to our church, we have bettered their lives.
I believed that.
We all did.
Like no joke. Like when you say that, it's like word for word. I bought into that 100%. 100%. Like I didn't think there was anywhere you could go in this town where people didn't think you were amazing because you went to Come As You Are and you were a part of this legacy of building this community for Jesus. Like I, hook, line, and sinker, believed that. And the reality is they really have no influence in this community whatsoever.
Faith can feel like hearts and butterflies until someone lights a match and burns it all to the ground. Welcome to the Burning Butterflies podcast.
The sad thing is that there's abuse of every kind within the church. But the spiritual abuse is the stuff that just
It's a place there shouldn't be abuse. Like, there just shouldn't be abuse in a place that claims Jesus.
Well, it ruins your soul. If you're new here, we suggest listening to our prologue episode first. This is the story of two women's journey through toxic church culture and spiritual abuse, all while finding healing in the end.
Sometimes it's just the facts, and if you get offended by it, that's a you issue. And if we can't be mature enough to have these conversations, even if some of the topics are difficult, then shame on us.
I mean, like, I understand when it first started being new and it being like the first non-denominational church, in this small town, and being new and being something different. Like, I'm sure that there was this, wanderlust about it. And there were things that I had heard about that Come As You Are had done in the community. So I do believe, like, when it first started in that first group of attenders, like, I think that was true. But I can tell you from the moment that I started going there, we didn't do community out. We were doing absolutely nothing outside of the four walls of the church to better our community. But I believed that because they did it for 1 year, 20 years ago, that I was still a part of it. Like, it's crazy how much the story can be spun to convince you of things.
It's the whole community is waiting for our Easter egg hunt. We're the only ones who are doing this. Well, no, we're not. 20 years ago we were.
Yeah.
But now everyone has the Easter bunny.
Yeah.
Like, everyone's waiting for the big summer park event. No, they're not, because now the town puts on like 3 a year.
Yeah.
And no one's coming to buy your nasty ass hot dogs.
Yeah.
And
don't knock on the hot dogs. You can't knock on the hot dogs. I don't like hot dogs, but they were buffalo and they were good.
No, 2 years we had the buffalo ones.
That's
Beyond that,
I only ate twice.
Yes, we had buffalo hot dogs 2 years, and then
I just assumed every year it was the buffalo. Those hot dogs are so good.
No, Tom made the people who owned the buffalo farm that we got the buffalo hot dogs from. Tom made the guy mad.
No.
And so he would donate money, but he wasn't donating his product.
Oh my gosh. I must have gotten
And
lucky then. And I just thought every year
no,
that's what because I don't eat
and
hot
if
dogs, but I was like, man, those are good hot dogs.
no, and if we wanted them, we had to pay for them. And
Oh.
so Tom didn't want to do that. So Tom was like, we're going to get these hot dogs because they're the best ones. And they were like crappy hot dogs and they were terrible. And like, they were the ones that like, if you like cook them like 2 seconds too long, they would like burst open.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That's so
The
funny.
only reason I know this is because
seriously-
my husband was the one who had to cook them every year. And every year he'd get so mad because he's like, we have to get those janky ass hot dogs again that Tom thinks are amazing and they taste like crap because they're cheap hot dogs. But Tom's like, they're the best.
That's so crazy. I had one great hot dog experience at the big park event, and I just assumed that everybody for years was having a great hot dog experience.
No, you just got the good year of hot dogs.
I did, because I always ate a burger. So I'm like,
Yeah.
one time I was like, I'll try one, because somebody said, oh, they're buffalo and they're good. You should try one. So I did, and I was like, man, that was the best. So good.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, we convince ourselves that, like, everyone thinks we're amazing. Like, I mean, we told, this is how into it I would tell parents, like, when you go and meet your teachers, like, you know, and they're like, ask, you know, what should I know about your student? You need to make sure you tell them that they are members of they are proud members of Come As You Are.
No, you did
all of
not.
this. I did too,
No, you
because I
did
was an
not.
asshole.
Shut
I did
up.
too.
Shut up.
Because
I
the
cannot be your friend
teachers-
anymore. Oh my God. Shut up. You did not say that.
the teachers
I just
in our
lost all respect for you.
community,
No, I'm just kidding. I love you. I love you. I want to be your friend. I'm just kidding.
teachers in our community are blessed to have our children in their classes. And they love when they have Come As You Are students in their classes.
Oh my God. You're fired. That's a whole new level.
Seriously. So it's 20 years of the Come As You Are extravaganza of blessing and Jesusness in the community. And we need to celebrate this. And I could not understand for the life of me why Tom, I said, what are we doing for our 20th? Like this summer, it's our 20th anniversary. And Tom was like, I don't know. Nothing.
Nothing, because he had to pay out the bonds.
And I'm like, what do you mean nothing? Like, this big summer park event should be the biggest one we've ever done. Like, this needs to be, like, we need to go all out for this. And he was like, well, if you think we should do it, if God has laid it on your heart, then maybe God wants you to lead it.
Yep.
Okay, well, that's exactly what I did. So I took this, and I am a nostalgic person anyway, and I am a historical person anyway. And so I've drank a F ton of Kool-Aid. And so I am convinced that I am preserving the history of Come As You Are.
You are the Kool-Aid Queen. That is your new nickname.
And this is
because you should be honored to have a Come As You Are student in your classroom. You are the Kool-Aid Queen. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So I put it out there. Hey, we're going to, be planning these like 20th anniversary events. Who wants to be a part of them? And, I kind of had a small team of people who were like, yeah, we need to do something. And really it was kind of like me and Lori in the office, mostly just the two of us kind of heading this up, but there was other people who were interested in stuff. And so we put together an entire like month of just amazing anniversary extravaganza-ness, because we start reaching out, and like anyone who has old pictures, right? Like I had taken pictures, and any picture I had ever taken at Come As You Are, I had a digital copy of it, right? Well, like, before I got there, like, so we had people bringing in like, oh, like I found this in my grandma's basement, and it was like boxes of stuff. And so we found like, and it was kind of cool. Like we found old pictures of like when Justin got baptized, and like, when like kind of the OG Come As You Are people, we had pictures of it, right? So we put together this giant, like I made it like a giant scroll, like this big long piece of paper, and I timelined out the church. And we put the big things on there of like when we built the church, and when we did these things, and kind of like the stuff that we've talked about in this podcast, those big main timeline events. A lot of those I got when I timelined this 20th anniversary out. And so we put the big main mile marker events on there, right? And we kind of like set out pictures. We had a big table in the lobby, and we set out pictures kind of on the timeline around it. But like if it's a picture of you or your family member, we invited you to like take the picture and keep it as a keepsake, and all of this stuff, because that was made very clear to us that Tom didn't care what we did, but one, the church was not going to pay for any of it, and two, we weren't collecting stuff to keep at the church. So when I started asking for pictures, he got really mad because he's like, where are we going to keep them? And I was like, well, we're going to give them to the people they're pictures of, like, and so we start planning this, and we decide we're sending invitations out. So anyone who has ever attended Come As You Are, we've talked about the communication cards, and we collect all of your information and all of this. And so, and we don't delete anything. So like in the office, the way we are keeping track of people who have come in the church is we have a Microsoft Access document it's basically like an address book, right? So we have this, and then every year we save as. So we have like Come As You Are Access, 2017. And then the next year we save as Come As You Are Access 2018. And we just keep adding to it. So we were able to go back to these old access files from like the last 15 years and get people's, addresses and stuff like that. So we really thought like, oh, people are going to be so excited. Like just take a second and think about the fact that like you could have gone to a church one time and filled out a communication card. And 15 years later, we send you an invitation to our anniversary party.
Yeah.
That's a little weird.
You think?
So, but like, I'm like, people are going to be so excited, and they're going to love. And even like, so I was like, oh, these people left because they were mad. And Tom was like, nope, we're inviting everyone. And so then Tom starts this narrative and this big push during this planning time that even if you have walked away from us, we still love you, and you are still a part of our family. And it's kind of a shift in his messaging, because up until then, anytime he talked about people leaving, he talked about it with this tone of like, they chose to chase the world. They chose to do this, and poor me, and everyone just hates me, and I'm the enemy of all these people. And it was very victimizing of Tom, right? But this shifts his narrative to, yes, all those people, they left because they're chasing the world, or they're left because they're mad. But Tom is gracious and forgiving and loving, and he still considers them a member of his family, and he still loves them deeply. And if they were to walk back in this door right now, Tom would be the first to walk up to them and welcome them back and tell them, I'm so glad you're here. And kind of like the prodigal son, living out in real life is kind of how Tom presented this, right?
Yeah, which really
So,
makes me wonder, like, after all the things we've talked about, just like the motivation behind that, but we may never know. Go ahead. Sure is a good PR campaign, especially after people coming back wanting people who had left the church coming back and wanting their bond money.
Well, and if Tom was going to scream at me over it, at that time, I had never experienced this before, of Tom confiding in me.
Yeah.
But now I'm working in the office and Tom is confiding in me. And I remember the children's ministry director would talk about, like, Tom would confide in her and how he has no one. And so if Tom chooses you to confide in, he feels safe with you.
Yeah.
And so, like, I kind of took this almost like a badge of honor. And so he's confiding in me, but now hindsight 2020, right? Like, if he's willing to scream that at me, I can only imagine what kind of one-on-one conversations he had with those people.
Oh, yeah. And the things that he was accused of.
Yeah.
Which makes this narrative of, I'm still, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, we don't know behind the scenes that this narrative is fueled by manipulation because of until you timeline it out and you like talk about these things, like, I would have never thought those two things had anything to do with each other.
Yeah. Well, and so as we're planning these things and we're saying, like, okay, here's our events that we're going to do and here's what we're doing to celebrate, people are getting excited, and especially people who came like during that big growth era in, like, the early 2010s. Like, they're excited because it's all of the come as you are lore is laid out before them, and it's almost like they're learning their ancestry.
Yeah.
And they're getting excited. And so as we're doing this, we're sending out these invitations. Young Gun comes to me and is asking me about Tom's leadership. And he's asking me very specific questions. And in the moment, I didn't see it, but I think he probably had conversations with other people. And they were like, oh, well, I've watched Tom do this to Amanda, and I've watched Tom do this to Amanda. And so he came and asked me very specific questions about very specific instances. And so as I'm talking to Young Gun about this, Young Gun puts together a survey of why did you leave Come As You Are? And it's a little 5-question survey. And so as I'm sending out invitations to the Come As You Are anniversary, I'm supposed to also send out these questionnaires. But it's not to everyone. He gives me a list of people, and it's a list of people who left because they had a giant argument with Tom.
Right.
And so I'm supposed to send out an invitation, and then if it doesn't get like returned to sender, because I mean, like, we got a lot of those because like people moved and we just didn't have
15 years ago this was your
this was your address, but so if we didn't get like a return to sender on the invitation, then I was like, I was supposed to follow up with these questionnaires, right?
Yeah.
And this made me feel very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I carried a lot of stress over this. Like, I lost sleep over this because I felt honestly, does Tom need to change his leadership style? Yes. But I felt very uncomfortable with being asked to send out these questionnaires.
Yeah, like this was a high dose of reality moment, I imagine, for
Yeah.
you, of like it put you in a like confronting. It's very confronting.
It is. And in the midst of this, like, I'm convinced everybody loves us because we're the best thing in the world. I'm also sending out, did you really leave the church because you found another church, or did you leave the church because Tom's an asshole?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, and this is like, I mean, the dynamic of, I know you've expressed it before, but just to remind our listener that like your dynamic with Young Gun is not only like from growing up on a personal level, but also in the church and then also as your pastor. And
Yeah.
then you have the dynamic on the other side of like Tom is your senior pastor and you've drank all the Kool-Aid. And like, yeah, I can imagine, especially for somebody like you, like now you'd be like all about it, but then it was like, am I doing something wrong? But I trust you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Like this really shook me. And I told Brandy I was sending out these questionnaires, but I told no one else. Like, I honestly, I don't even know if I told Justin.
Yeah.
I would have to ask him. But anyway,
did anybody return?
I don't know. I don't know because I wouldn't get the mail. I wouldn't get the mail. Barbara Jean would get the mail because that's about the only thing Barbara Jean could do in the office that she really honestly couldn't screw up was go get the mail.
Yeah.
And so Barbara Jean would get the mail. And so if it was in, like, we put return envelopes in there with a stamp and it was addressed to Pastor Younggun.
Yeah.
So if they did come back, she would have just put them directly into his mailbox. And I don't know. I don't know if anyone ever returned them.
Yeah, just thought I'd ask.
Yeah. So we're planning this whole extravaganza, right? And people are getting excited. Not so much community people, but our own people. We're all super stoked about it. We have invitations. So like people are supposed to invite their neighbors and invite their friends. And we make invitations for the kids to give their friends. And the kids, like, you know, we give out invitations at the end of VBS for all the families to come back to our big 20th anniversary celebration. And, you know, we have invitations for the teenagers to give their friends. And, you know, we are just convinced that we are going to have thousands of people come to this stuff because everyone is just going to be so excited, right? So we come up with like a few events. One of them, because we are just such big blessings to our schools, is we are going to go and do prayer walks around our schools. And I know from volunteering in the schools that we have teachers in our local school district who meet before school starts. So before contract hours, they will meet together in a classroom and they will pray over the students for that week and pray over the school and everything like that. And so I reach out to the teachers that I know that are a part of this. And, you know, I say, you know, we would love to invite you to come to this prayer walk. It's the summertime, so the schools are closed. We can't go into the schools, but we come up with a map and we come up with a like things that you can pray as you walk around these schools. So we all meet together at the church. I think it's like a Sunday after service, and we do a prayer around the church building, and we have pictures. I'll put them up on our Patreon. But we have pictures of, everyone, and we had this we were convinced we were going to have so many people we could circle the entire building on the outside and pray, like hold hands around the outside of the building and encircle the whole building and pray for our church. We did not have enough people to circle the whole building. So we had a line of people down the sidewalk in the front, and then we cut through the middle of the building, like in the lobby, which if you're interested in, like, we talk about like the layout of our church. I did like do like a little like kind of a map of the church when we talk about like the addition, like what I had asked for and what Melissa was envisioning was going to be, put out there. I kind of drew a crude little map of like the church. So you can get an idea of that. That's on our Patreon. But so we cut through the middle of the church, through the lobby, and out the back and down the back sidewalk. Like we can't even circle half the church building, right? Like
I think I was there for that.
So we pray for our church, and then everyone is supposed to go pray. So like if you have students at this elementary school, you're going to go pray at that elementary school. If you have students at the high school, you're going to go pray at the high school. And so we went to the elementary school that our kids went to, and we prayed over the school, and you walk around, and we just said, like walk around the outside of the school and pray for the school. We gave like prayer points of like, pray for the teachers, pray for the administrators, pray for the janitors, pray for the cooks in the, the lunch ladies, pray for the students, pray for the teachers, pray for safety. And then, the biggest prayer that we had in all bold at the bottom was, pray that our students are a light in the darkness for all who do not know Christ in their school. Students and adults alike, because we were just convinced that our kids can lead a teacher to the Lord. Like that's what's going to happen, right?
Yeah. I am pretty sure that we did the because it was, if I remember correctly, it was like right after service.
Yes.
Because you had to catch everybody. You had the most people because you got to catch the people that, go on Sunday. And then right after church, we organized. But then I had to go to work. So, and we didn't do the school thing. We just did the at the church one. Yeah, I remember
so
that.
We did that. I sometimes in telling these stories, I get really embarrassed at just who I was. So Lori and I, again, because the community is just so thankful for us, and we have made such an impact, we put together gift baskets to be given out to local municipalities as a thank you for allowing us to be a blessing to our community. I am not joking. That is what the card said.
No.
And we gave them to, because there's our town and then there's the next town over, right? And we really function as like a big giant community. So we gave them to both police stations, both town halls, both fire stations, both libraries, and both post offices. And we thanked them for allowing us to be a blessing for 20 years. And we had homemade cookies and muffins and it was like a little goodie basket, right? And Lori and I drive all around and deliver these baskets.
I seriously thought you couldn't beat the "It's are a blessing to the teacher" speech, but alas, you have won the award for the most cultastic member of the year, back to back champion of the world. Like,
So
no, that
when
is
you wonder,
so oozing with ew.
so when you wonder why did people not like Amanda, it's because of crap like this. Because I did crap like this, and I didn't just do it. I didn't just participate in it. I believed it with my whole chest.
You went above and beyond.
And we would go in and we would deliver these baskets, right? And we would give this speech of like, thank you. It is our 20th anniversary and we've been in this community for 20 years. And we wanted to thank you because you do so much for the community, but we wanted to thank you for the opportunity to be a blessing for 20 years. And people would look at us and they'd be like, okay, thanks. Like, just completely perplexed and like not understanding. And then
not thank you for
yeah,
what you do. Thank you for letting us do what?
Okay, so people are confused because we're coming off as batshit crazy, full on. And like, we wonder why people say we were in a cult because we did stuff like this. And so, but we would get in the car. And so we go and we deliver all the baskets, right? And we come back and we report back that these people, it was like they've never been blessed before. And they didn't like, I told you, like, it's embarrassing to think that like this is but they didn't know. It was like they no one had ever blessed them like this before.
Nobody ever will.
And so yeah,
they didn't even know how to respond. They were so flabbergasted that we would do this for them.
Yeah. But in reality, they're like, oh, okay. Like, you're giving us a basket of muffins because you're awesome? Okay. Okay. So we do that. We also do a big, like, because by this point, Tom, the more we start planning and the more we put information out there, the more people are getting excited. And Tom is seeing that people are excited. Yeah. So if Tom is on board for anything, Tom is on board for the fact that people are excited about the church.
Yeah.
Right? So, he decides we're going to have like a big 20th anniversary sermon and people are going to talk, like, share their testimonies, right? So he's going to do that. And then he decides we need to do a praise in the park. So now all of a sudden the church is willing to pay for stuff. Okay. So we're going to do a praise in the park and we're going to have a big concert and it's going to be a free concert. And so we have like Tom and we have our worship team. And I don't think you were probably working.
Yeah, this is like the season for me of like, I volunteered for the things that I held in like the most high esteem. And then I was always battling if I couldn't get off of work, then I didn't participate. And like I said, even with the prayer thing, it's like we went right after church. And then of course for Froggy, like he's only has to put on a show at church. So he's not going to go to the school thing. But then I ran off to work. But also like at this time, like there was some discord, which we've talked about on the worship team. So I wasn't all like, this wasn't worth taking off of work for, basically,
Yeah.
in my world.
So we're going to do this big praise in the park thing. And it's almost like God was like, yeah, no, you're not. And so
So we can tell you how awesome we are from stage.
Yeah. Yeah. So we had our worship team. We had there was like a Spanish like they did all Spanish worship music that someone in the church had like a connection with. So they came, and then like another church's worship team group or whatever, they came to do a set or whatever. But we're going to do it in the park, and God was like, yeah, maybe we probably shouldn't have you out in public doing more ridiculousness in my name. Let's just hide you away in your own little church, in your own little building. And there was a huge thunderstorm that came through, like huge thunderstorm. And so we had to move it into the sanctuary, and like no one showed up, but no one was showing up to that anyway. But Tom blamed it on the weather, that, because God does all things. God will orchestrate things, and, God will put things in your life to teach you lessons and everything. But if it rains out something that you were really excited about, that's just happenstance. That's just weather. God had nothing to do with that. And so we do that. And I went to take pictures, but if there was 30 people there, I'd be surprised, And then our big giant thing was like, for the anniversary weekend, the Saturday, we did almost like a big summer park event, but we called it a family reunion. And everyone who had ever attended the church, this is what we put on the invitation, they are invited to this family reunion weekend where they come to the park. We had the best inflatables we had ever had. These were better than the ones we got for the big summer park event. And we had games, and we had all of this stuff. And I had the big timeline there so people could add to the timeline. So what I wanted was like, we put the church's big events, but we want you to add your events because you are the church. We are the church, right? And so adding, if you were married at Come As You Are, or if you were baptized, or if you, dedicated a baby, or any of those big events at Come As You Are, I had Sharpies and people could add, so I put Clayton Turnbull, dedicated, Jolyn Turnbull dedicated on the timeline. And, if you had someone who you had their funeral at the church, you could put their name, and then put a little cross next to their name. And, it was supposed to be this big, wonderful thing. And, no one who had left the church came back to come to that. But that was our big, huge event. And it was amazing, and it was going to be spectacular in this huge family reunion. And that was on Saturday. And then Sunday was this testimony Sunday. And Tom wasn't going to preach a sermon. It was going to be all testimonies. But like we've talked before, if someone would say something that Tom didn't like, he would have to correct them from stage. And so he would get up and give a little mini sermon after certain people if they said something he didn't like. If you are a member of our Patreon, you can go back, because this is one of the very first Patreons we made. I was the very first person to share my testimony. And we found the video of it. It is out there on YouTube. So, if you know the real name of Come As You Are, you can go scour their YouTube and you can watch the whole thing. But I stand on stage and I cry. And I beg people to be a part of this family. And if you are not a part of this family, I am begging you that you are missing out, and you need to experience the love and the acceptance and the blessing of being a part of this church. And I essentially, through my tears and pleading, serve up a giant vat of Kool-Aid. So on our Patreon, you can go back and look. I do a reaction video of that, where I watch myself make a fool of myself, and I give commentary. So if you're looking for something fun to do, you could go back and look at that episode. But we have that. We have this huge 20th, thing, and we are all so tunnel visioned over it that we are just convinced that this was the best thing ever. And even though, like, if you stop and you think about it, you're like, no one who left the church came back for that. No one from the community who wasn't going to church anywhere came to Come As You Are, because we invited the whole community to this thing.
Would you?
No.
If you got an invitation in the mail today that was like, come celebrate with us. I don't even know if I could attend an event that somebody was holding. Like,
I've been invited to like parties and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There, and I have not gone to them. I've like sent a card and just been like, congratulations to you. But we had a like friend of the family pass away, and Justin's mom was just adamant that the funeral needed to be at Come As You Are, and Tom needed to officiate it.
Yeah.
So I did not attend the funeral. I skipped it because I just could not.
No.
I just couldn't.
I don't think I could. I don't think that I could. But like, honestly, like, the stuff that we talk is ridiculousness. I mean, I know it was our lives and it was real, and yours so much more because of the age that you were inducted. But like, I was miserable.
The
entire time. And what's interesting about that is that I work in an industry now where, like, we will deliver food, and a lot of times churches order food for weddings, funerals. People order food and have it delivered and set up. And I listen to these coworkers of mine come back from these deliveries from churches, and the people that they deal with in the church, like, they always have a comment about how miserable that they are. And it's like, for what? Like, I was miserable during that time.
I think because it is humiliating to recount some of these things. And like, part of me wanted to just be like, yeah, we did this 20th anniversary thing and just kind of like skim over it. But like, that doesn't move the story along in a way that does it justice. And so I am, like, to my own humility, like, being as transparent and honest as I can. And I want people to understand what my mindset was back then, because like we've said so much, this is an epidemic. This is a problem. And this isn't just come as you are. This is going on in churches all over this country. And so I want people to see where I was and what my mindset was. And I was miserable. Like, I mean, yes, I wasn't as dark and depressed as I was, just a couple years prior to this, but I was still so miserable. I was willing to just hold on to anything that would bring me just a shred of joy and give me just a minute glimmer of purpose and acceptance. And so I was willing to do anything.
Yeah.
And I was willing to fool myself and be delusional to the point where I was convinced that we needed to thank our local police department for allowing us to be a blessing to them. We go through all of this. And so we've built this up. So the whole church now is moving into the fall with this mindset that we are a blessing in this community. We are a pillar of this community. Everyone looks to us as a beacon of light and hope and love. And we have to live up to that. And so, as much as Tom was not on board in the beginning for this, and he didn't understand why you would want to be nostalgic over something like this, he got on board and he carried it forward. And this mindset of family reunion, and like, he still to this day will stand on stage and preach that he will welcome anyone back if they have left, even if they left after a horrible argument and all of that. He welcomes them back with love and open arms, and he'd never stop loving people and things like that. And this was, I feel like, almost like a shift for him in his narrative, because he went from being preaching very like victimizing himself, and everyone hates me, and this whole town hates me, and this whole town is out to get me, and all of this stuff, and very like, he's persecuted for who he is and his zeal for the Lord, to this much softer but still delusional idea that people get mad at him and leave, but he forgives and he loves. And this carries forward this idea into the fall that we love everyone and we are here to show them the love of God.
Burning Butterflies is a listener-supported podcast. Today's episode was brought to you by our amazing supporters on Patreon.
Follow the link in our show notes to learn how you can become a Patreon supporter too. Supporters get exclusive access to bonus content each month, including outtakes, cut content, and supporter-only episodes. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating on your listening platform.
Burning Butterflies is a production of Asha Media. Thank you for listening.